Formula One arrives in China with many questions, but no one expected what Ferrari is about to show. In Maranello, they have prepared an update that could completely change the balance of forces on the grid, and the first data that has come out of the team has already caused an unexpected reaction even within the Red Garage itself. What Ferrari has developed for the SF26 is not just another aerodynamic improvement. It is a solution that exploits a gray area in the regulations and that, according to engineers, could give the car a brutal advantage on the straights without sacrificing cornering performance. Subscribe to continue uploading more of this type of content now, if we continue. Ferrari arrives at the Chinese Grand Prix at a very delicate moment in the season, with a car that has already proven to have a competitive base, but still has a clear problem compared to its direct rivals: straight line efficiency. On circuits where top speed makes a difference, the SF26 has struggled to keep up with the fastest cars on the grid, especially when compared to the performance that some teams have shown in low drag areas. For this reason, a very important strategic decision was made within Maranello before traveling to Shanghai. Introduce an aerodynamic update that not only improves the car, but also changes the way in which the car manages the air when reaching high speeds. The centerpiece of this new package is a completely revised rear wing concept that is already known by a very particular name within the team. This design exploits a very aggressive interpretation of an area of the technical regulation that still leaves some room for creativity for engineers, especially when it comes to the behavior of the wing when the car reaches certain aerodynamic loads. What Ferrari has developed allows the wing to change its straight-line behavior in a very unconventional way, reducing drag significantly and allowing the car to gain speed without having to compromise the downforce necessary for cornering. According to internal data that has been leaked from the first simulations and tests carried out by the team, the result could be much more important than initially expected. Engineers have detected increases of between 5 and 8 kilometers per hour in top speed, a figure that in current Formula One represents a very serious advantage if it remains stable during a complete race. On a circuit like Shanghai, where the long back straight usually decides many overtakings, this improvement could become a key strategic tool for Ferrari, both in qualifying and during the Grand Prix. However, within the team itself, there is also some caution. These types of aerodynamic solutions usually bring with them side effects that are difficult to predict when the car enters critical phases of driving, such as hard braking or sudden changes in direction. If the transition between downforce and low drag is not completely stable, the car could become more nervous at some points on the circuit. It's an extremely delicate balance, and Ferrari knows that any slight instability could cost lap time or even compromise the overall performance of the package. For that reason, the team will not travel to China with a single version of the new wing, but with several different specifications ready to be tested over the weekend. Each of them presents small variations in aerodynamic flow behavior, which will allow engineers to quickly collect data and decide which offers the best balance between top speed and stability. The intention is clear: make the most of the SF26's potential without risking the car's consistency in real racing conditions. The problem is that the context of the Chinese Grand Prix does not exactly facilitate these types of experiments. The sprint format dramatically reduces the time available to test new configurations, forcing teams to make technical decisions in an extremely short time frame. Ferrari will have very few laps to understand how this improvement really works on track before having to commit to a setup for the rest of the weekend. And in a system as innovative as this, each piece of data can completely change the interpretation of its potential. For this reason, curiosity about what Ferrari is preparing is beginning to grow within the paddock. If the system works exactly as Maranello engineers hope, the SF26 could be transformed into a much more complete car, capable of maintaining its cornering performance while gaining a clear advantage on the straights. But if something doesn't click as it should, the team could find itself battling unpredictable behavior right on one of the most compressed weekends on the calendar. As Ferrari prepares to put this new aerodynamic package on track in Shanghai, a clear feeling is beginning to emerge within the paddock. The Italian team could be attempting something much more ambitious than a simple performance upgrade. Over the past few years, Formula One has seen multiple creative interpretations of the technical regulations, but what Ferrari has designed for its SF26 seems to seek an advantage that combines two things that are normally difficult to achieve at the same time: maintaining high downforce in corners and, at the same time, drastically reducing air resistance when the car is launched down the straights. The concept behind this new rear spoiler is especially interesting because it is based on how the airflow behavior changes when the car reaches very high speeds. Under normal conditions, teams have to choose between more downforce or more top speed, since increasing downforce usually also generates more drag. Ferrari has tried to break that compromise by using a wing geometry that allows the flow behavior to be modified when the aerodynamic pressure changes. In practical terms, this means that the wing can behave very differently depending on the speed of the car, something that could generate an effect similar to an automatic reduction of drag on a straight line. This behavior creates what some engineers describe as a controlled stall effect. When the car enters a long straight, the airflow is reorganized around the wing in a way that reduces its drag, allowing the SF26 to gain speed without needing to open up additional systems or completely sacrifice the car's stability. However, when the driver takes his foot off the accelerator and enters a braking zone or a fast corner, the flow again adheres to the profile of the wing, recovering part of the aerodynamic load necessary to keep the car glued to the asphalt. This type of aerodynamic behavior is extremely difficult to design because it depends on a series of very sensitive factors: the speed of the car, the angle of the wing, the pressure of the air flow, and even the turbulence generated by other parts of the car. If everything works perfectly, Ferrari could have found a very clever way to maximize the car's performance in different phases of the lap. But if the system does not behave exactly as engineers expect, the transition between these two aerodynamic states could be too abrupt, generating unpredictable reactions in the car. Precisely for this reason, Ferrari has prepared several different configurations of this piece for the weekend in China. Each of them slightly modifies the way the flow separates from the wing in a straight line and reattaches in a curve. Engineers want to study how the car responds in real track conditions, especially on the long Shanghai straight, where the drag reduction effect could become one of the SF20SX's biggest advantages. If the data matches what the simulations show, Ferrari could gain a very powerful strategic tool to attack or defend positions during the race. But the challenge does not end there. The sprint format of the Chinese Grand Prix means the team will have very little time to analyze the data before having to decide which version of the wing to use in qualifying and the main race. This turns the weekend into something of a large-scale experiment in which Ferrari will have to rely on both previous simulation work and its driver's ability to quickly interpret the car's behavior. And this is where the sensations from the cockpit come into play. Both Hamilton and Leclerc have been able to analyze the first simulations of the aerodynamic package, and within the team, it is said that both drivers were surprised by the potential shown by the data. It's not just about gaining top speed, but how that advantage could completely change the way Ferrari competes wheel-to-wheel against its rivals. If the car really manages to maintain its performance in curves while gaining several kilometers per hour on the straight, the SF26 could become a much more dangerous car on circuits where overtaking is usually difficult. However, no one at Ferrari wants to get too far ahead. Formula One is full of brilliant solutions on paper that then behave very differently when they hit the asphalt. Shanghai will be the first real scenario where this concept will have to demonstrate if it is really the innovation that Ferrari hopes for, or simply a too risky bet in a season in which every point can make the difference. In the end, everything that Ferrari has prepared for the Chinese Grand Prix represents much more than a simple technical update. It is a declaration of intent in a season in which each team is looking for any detail that can make a real difference on the track. The SF26 had already proven to have a solid foundation in corners, something that was clear in the first races of the year, but the team knew it needed to find a solution to improve its efficiency on the straight if it wanted to compete head-to-head against the fastest cars on the grid. For this reason, this new aerodynamic concept has become a key piece in Ferrari's development strategy. The bet is ambitious because it tries to solve one of the most difficult compromises of modern Formula One, balancing the aerodynamic load necessary to be fast in the corners with the low resistance that allows reaching competitive top speeds. If the system works as the team's internal data indicates, Ferrari could have found a very clever way to improve its performance without sacrificing the car's existing strengths. Gaining between 5 and 8 kilometers per hour on a straight line is not a minor improvement, and un campeonato donde las diferencias entre equipos suelen medirse en décimas de segundo, una ventaja así podría cambiar completamente la dinámica de las carreras. However, Shanghai will be the real test for this innovation. The sprint format of the weekend leaves very little room for experimentation, forcing Ferrari to quickly understand the real behavior of this improvement on the track. Engineers will have to analyze every piece of data, every reaction from the car, and every comment from the drivers to determine if the concept works exactly as designed in simulation. At this level of competition, Even the smallest detail can upset the balance of the car, and a brilliant solution on paper can become complicated to manage when the car enters real racing situations. Therefore, within the team, there's a mixture of enthusiasm and prudence. The first data has generated surprise even among the drivers themselves, who see in this update a real opportunity to improve the performance of the SF26 in an aspect where the car needed to take a step forward. But at the same time, everyone at Ferrari knows that Formula One is an extremely demanding environment where every innovation must prove its worth on the track before it can be considered a real advantage. If everything works as expected in Maranello, this new wing could become one of the technical keys of the next races and an important tool to fight against the direct rivals in the championship. But if the system's behavior is not as stable as the simulations suggest, Ferrari will have to react quickly to adapt its development strategy. In any case, the Chinese Grand Prix is emerging as the perfect setting to discover if this aerodynamic commitment really represents the leap in performance that the team was looking for. Subscribe to continue uploading more of that content. Now you really think about all this.